Placemaking Summit. We've been having various days. The first day was tourism and outcome of creative placemaking. We had discussed St. Luke on Tuesday and did panel discussions in the afternoon speaking about different program possibilities for the facility once it's up, which will be a French language and cultural immersion school in an old hospital, repurposing that hospital. Wednesday was Coda Field Day. We discussed the Creole language, the identity of it, and the future. And then yesterday was economic development, when we talked about creative placemaking projects currently going on in the area with our task force that we formulated. So today, in my opinion, don't tell the rest, is the best. Because I think what y'all are going to be discussing is so relevant to everything. And so I thank you very much for coming, and I thank David for doing this.
Yeah, in a sense, not to brag on ourselves too much. I mean, all the rest doesn't really matter much if there's no land here anymore, right? If we're all standing in 2 feet of water. I just want to introduce some of the people here also and be talking about these different issues that are facing us here for environmental sustainability. I think we'll go first, just have a little introduction. We're still waiting on one person. Lily Voorhees is running late. She said her dog ran away. She had to chase after it. So we have to keep that dog safe. So just give everybody introductions, and then we're going to come on up and make the presentation. We'll also come up first, and then I'll let y'all find it out afterwards. I'll try to keep things a little sane, in order, but everybody has a chance to speak here. Emile Osselet is a native French speaker who grew up in the hamlets of Austin. It was actually South Austin, everybody. Currently the director of water quality, Emile, at Bayou main district. Emile also worked as the Bayou technician, a Bayou specialist, and as the recreational education coordinator. He was an avid kayaker, hiker, and camper, as well as a Catahoula enthusiast and certified scuba diver. He graduated from the University of Louisiana Lafayette in 2009 with a BA in anthropology, and in 2010 with a BS in environmental science, renewable and sustainable resources, where he also completed a post-baccalaureate internship growing algae for biofuel. Emile has presented his research at various conferences, including at Vertec in La Rochelle, France, and he plans to continue his work with BVD, researching and working on ways to improve watersheds. Then we'll have, also from BVD, Mr. Greg Idros, who is a Brobridge native, who has worked in just about every aspect of BVD and Louisville, from Bayou operations crew member to gardener and artisan. With a background in environmental science and sustainable resources, and more than 15 years experience as an environmental educator, Greg is our resident Cajun naturalist. He's an Eagle Scout, a U.S. Marine, a storyteller, and an outdoor enthusiast. He's the winner of the 2015 Keep Louisiana Beautiful Golden Can Award for his lifetime dedication to recycling, volunteering for Festival International in Louisiana, and Speak, and for establishing BVD's Event Recycle Bin Loan Program, as well as recipient of the Bayou Marine Preservation Association 2014 Visionary of the Year Award. Wow. Also associated with BVD, of course, is Ms. Catherine Sheffer-Como. Catherine is a zero-waste enthusiast, involved citizen of Acadiana, sometimes writer and full-time homemaker, mother of 3. She is a new appointee to the BVD's Board of Commissioners. She is currently active in No Waste Louisiana, through which she was instrumental in getting the Lafayette Parish school system to implement recycling in almost 50% of its schools. She is passionate about fixing things, using real dishes, composting, and recycling beyond the curbside pickup. Also here, a young man I just had the pleasure of meeting, but I've heard a lot about in the past few months or so, Mr. Brandon Boulanger. He's an artist, biologist, and environmental educator who creates transdisciplinary artworks inspired from his ecological field and laboratory research. Brandon's art has been exhibited internationally, and in the summer of 2013, the first career survey of his work debuted in the Chateau de Cheramie, I'm not familiar with this shelter. Cheramie in Essonne, France, and traveled with the museum Het Domaine in Sittard, Netherlands in 2014. In 2016, a 20-year retrospective of his work was held at the University of Wyoming Art Museum in Laramie, Wyoming, with a forthcoming book. He holds a PhD in transdisciplinary art and biology from the University of Plymouth in England, in collaboration with the, in German, Hochschule für Gestaltung Zurich in Switzerland. Currently, he is a postdoctoral research associate at the Museum of Natural Science at LSU, studying the impact of fish species from the 2010 Gulf of Mexico oil spill. And this summer, he will be a Smithsonian Art Research Fellow at the National Museum of Natural History and the Smithsonian American Art Museum in Washington, D.C. Also, eventually, hopefully, we'll have Lily Voorhees, who will be joining us. Lily is a seed steward, a geographer, designer, grower, and writer, studying and working in the context of South Louisiana. And at her residence, she operates a micro-urban farm and greenhouse utilizing growing techniques of agroecology, permaculture, regenerative agriculture, and specializing in agrobiodiversity and growing ecologically beneficial or culturally significant plants such as Louisiana prairie species and or varieties collected from the South Louisiana seed collections. And the garden greenhouse homestead is called Bumble Prairie Growing. And also, last but not least, who is Monique Michel Verdun, who is building the geodome in the back, so we won't have to go live in afterwards. Then I should probably say a few words. Monique is a native daughter of South Louisiana, such as I'm not a daughter, but I am from South Louisiana. And her intimate documentation of the Mississippi River Delta's indigenous home and nation exposes the complex interconnectedness of environment, economics, culture, climate, and change. Her photography has been exhibited nationally and internationally and is included in the Good Pirates of the Forgotten Bayous, published by Yale University Press in 2008. And None Such Records, Habitat for Humanity benefit album are New Orleans in 2005. And she received her bachelor's degree in mass communications from Loyola University, New Orleans, Wolfpack. Probably alumnus of that establishment as well. And if you haven't seen her movie, My Louisiana Love, in 2010, which was her first documentary film, you should post-haste go to view that movie. It's phenomenal. So, without any further ado, I'm going to get started here. I'm going to bring Max Emil to come up and make his presentation, which will be, what was the title of that? Sustainability through the lens of water quality. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Emil Ancelet.
Hello, everybody. Can I hear you without the microphone? Is it easier?
No.
With the microphone?
Yes.
Great. Sorry, I'm feeling a little bit under the weather right now. But thank y'all for having me to talk to y'all. Having me here today to talk to y'all about sustainability. I work in the water quality department at Bayou District. And y'all are all probably familiar with what we're charged with. We're in charge of maintaining the Main River inside of Lafayette Parish and improving the watershed. Improving the watershed. And water quality and sustainability are two pretty interesting things. They deal with a whole lot of stuff. I guess the term would be overlapping magisteria, that's what they would call that. But in terms of sustainability, we think of sustainability in three overlapping magisteria: social, environmental, and economic. And the social aspects of water quality and sustainability are the Cajun, Creole, and Native American cultures are all heavily influenced by water. We used it for our transportation, our nutrition, our recreation, our livelihoods, even our spirituality, getting baptized in the bayous. Probably wouldn't want to do that in polluted bayous. Don't want to eat the fish out of polluted bayous, can't fish in polluted bayous, can't recreate in them. And we have, like it says at the bottom, for me at least, having clean water is a right because it affects our quality of life and our way of life in South Louisiana. More interestingly, the economic aspects of clean water, the travel and tourism industry is the 4th highest employer in the state. And ecotourism is already really huge in Louisiana. We're called sportsman's paradise. We deal with it with hunting, fishing, especially with this new Bayou paddle trail. People come from all over to do that. And we're seeing that more and more. 10 years ago, you only saw a few people riding around town. Actually, Mr. Harrell was probably one of them with kayaks on top of their cars. Now it's everywhere. Canoes. Now it's everywhere. Pack and Paddle has a whole separate side of their store dedicated just to paddling. And that all affects our economy. People coming down here to fish in our waters, especially. The fishing industry in Louisiana, the seafood industry in Louisiana. So much of our economy is tied to the water quality of this area. Some pictures of the fishing industry and some ecotourism that happens that a site we're all very familiar with, people coming out from out of state to go and enjoy Lake Martin or our river cruises at Bayou Vermilion district. And this, you wouldn't want, it's not an encouraging thing for people to come down here and then to have to explain to them or show them the trash or explain to them why the waters are so contaminated because it's us and we're not taking care of them. And then we get to the third one, the third overlapping magistrate, which is the environment. And what effect we are having on the environment, the anthropogenic effects of water quality. This is something that's a good visual to kind of represent something that happened pretty recently after the floods. We're going to get into it, I'm going to get into it in a minute, but water quality, when you're dealing with fish, if we have higher organic loading, reducing dissolved oxygen in our waters, especially after things like the flood, we see things like this, fish kills, massive fish kills, which hurts our economy, hurts our ecotourism, and you can see how they're all connected. So what BBD has done, our department in particular, is we got a contract through the Department of Environmental Quality to start addressing all of these issues individually. So we know that we have impairments on our river. We've been knowing what the impairments have been for quite a while. Turbidity mainly, dissolved oxygen, and fecal coliform. And at the beginning of this year, the Bayou Vermilion District made a change to start actually addressing those issues instead of just monitoring those issues. So we were recipients of a $33,000 grant to get a no-till drill to start loaning out to the farmers of the area to help reduce farmland runoff. This new contract that we have with the DEQ to go inspect individual home sewer septic systems that are failing all over. So if you're in the city, you're tied into the city grid and your waste is taken care of. But if you're not tied, if you live outside of city limits, the only part of the inspection process that is permitted is the installation of your system. So if you have a home that's not tied into the city grid, the only time Louisiana Department of Health or the DEQ or anything like that is going to go out and make sure that your system is functioning properly is when it's installed. After it's installed, the responsibility falls back on the homeowner. The homeowner is responsible for making sure that their particular septic system or aeration system is working and not contaminating the environment around them. It's the timeline of when we got this contract started. And this is an outline of what we're doing. So we have 2 employees that are full-time inspectors. We'll be going out and doing the inspections. It has a large education outreach campaign associated with it. So we're trying to educate the homeowners of how the systems work, how to maintain them, why it's important they maintain them, And if they're not maintained, there is law. It is law that you have to maintain them. So after we do the education part of it, if they're still not in compliance, then we pass that on to the state level where they'll take care of it with legislation and local manner. This is the area that we're working. So what we've done is we've taken Lafayette Parish and it's divided into particular watersheds, smaller watersheds that are inside of our parish. It's all one main big watershed called the Vermilion watershed, but inside of that there are smaller units that affect it. So basically each coulee or each tributary has its own micro watershed that's associated with it. And what we've done is we've gone and isolated one of them that we know has been a problem. And we have over 944 households that we'll be inspecting inside of that watershed to make sure that their septic systems are in compliance. And after, this is going to take about 2 to 3 years, and after that's done, we'll hopefully roll over to the next watershed to make our way all the way around the parish. And we had to get state training to accomplish this. We've been out multiple times with the Louisiana Department of Health, with the Department of Environmental Quality. We just got back from Calcasieu Parish. They were the original grant recipients of the same program over 10 years ago, and they've seen massive success with it. We've also been to Tangipahoa Parish, where they have a similar program, and Tangipahoa Parish has actually delisted some of their watersheds, making them viable for primary and secondary contact again, which means that you can swim and boat in the rivers. So these are some of the pictures of what we will be seeing. The bottom right in particular has images of failing system. And there are multiple different types of septic systems that we're learning about right now. And they all function very differently. There are 1,000 of them on the market. They all function very differently. And they all have different areas where they can fail. But for example, a septic system where it doesn't have an aeration unit is only doing 20% of the job inside the septic system. It's using anaerobic processes. And after it leaves that tank, it needs to go into a leach field where 80% of it is being taken care of. But if your leach field isn't working, or isn't functioning properly, and you have your septic system that's only doing 20% of it, then 80% of the contaminants are making their way into our bayou. And if you have an aeration system, then the aeration unit takes care of 99.9% of it. It's getting rid of it's the aerobic process is getting rid of it that way. But if that system fails and it's broken, then 100% of the contaminants are making their way out. And this is a pretty common sight, what we see in Louisiana. Natural waterways that are littered with these pipes just coming out of them, and it's not visually appealing, it's not sanitary when one of those things breaks. And I know I grew up in Scott and Austin, and we used to play in ditches and all sorts of stuff growing up, just not even thinking about it, It would flood, my parents' land floods over a foot almost every time it rains, and we're just not thinking about the contaminants that are coming out of my neighbors down the pastures, septic systems because they're not being maintained. This is an example of one going straight into the bayou, So what can we do about it? We can make sure that our septic systems are being maintained. You can see here how it's going into this aerobic treatment system, but then what we're pushing and hoping for is people will start taking tertiary treatment or third treatment, last extra treatment more seriously. So after it leaves your aeration system, it doesn't have to go directly into the ditch. There are other options that can go into gardens, or the last slide will give you an example of tertiary treatment. So instead of going into the ditch, these people are piping their effluent into basically rain gardens and letting the biological processes finish the job before they go through. And that's just a fail-safe. If the leach field is broken, or if the aeration system is broken, if you run it through a system like this, it's just helping reduce the amount of contaminants that are going out into our bodies and waterways. And the idea of sustainability is water is what they're still saying that water is a renewable resource because there's a certain amount of potable water on Earth. But how renewable is it if we're polluting it? how renewable is it if it is a finite amount of potable water on Earth and we're causing all this pollution, it's eventually going to take more energy to clean that water than it did to access that water. We're eventually going to have to start using salt water. And if we're, not only that, we're using groundwater right now, but if we start polluting our groundwater, and so it's a really tricky thing calling water a renewable resource when we're polluting our renewable resource. It quickly becomes unrenewable and unsustainable. So sustaining a healthy environment, sustaining a healthy economy and a culture all depend, especially here, on water. And that's what BBD is hoping to accomplish with our new programs. Yeah, that's where we're at right now, and we're going to start doing our inspections in June. We'll be in the northern part of your character, and we'll work our way down towards the river, and hopefully delist that watershed in the next couple of years.
I have a question for you. I have a quick question. Is the people that you're going to be inspecting, this is all voluntary?
No, this is a program that was, the inspection sites were identified by the Louisiana Department of Health.
So if I'm a homeowner, I was notified that you're going to come inspect it. I have no say in it, right?
Well, no, you can deny the inspection, but the way it's going to work is we're there as a courtesy before the state gets involved, because it is law. So BBD is there as a courtesy to the homeowner to identify what's broken and give them time to fix it before the state gets involved, because the state is coming behind.
Have you had any pushback from these homeowners yet?
We haven't started the inspections yet.
Oh, okay.
We shouldn't. I mean, we shouldn't want to pollute them. If your septic system is failing, then your waste is going into your ditch and your yard.
Right.
And you sick.
And I understand that, but as you well know, there are people that may not want to spend that money to replace it. They know it's broken and they're not doing it.
Well, we have cost share programs for people that if money is an issue and money is tight, and you make under a certain amount of money per year, there is a cost share program through the Department of Environmental Quality. There's also the Department of Ag. If all your system needs is a pump out, the Department of Ag is doing pump outs for free to do that. But as a homeowner, by law, you are required to maintain your system. So Bayou District is going out there to let you know what's wrong with it. If you refuse the inspection, that's fine. We don't have to do the inspection. There's no law saying that we have to do that. But be rest assured that the state will be coming behind us to make sure that your system is in compliance, and they have legislation and law behind them.
Yeah, I was just curious because I know years ago in Mississippi, they were all dumping straight into the backwaters of the bay, and they were grandfathered in, and they were trying, there was a lot of pushback to try to get people, even though they knew it was wrong. It's that mindset,
Yeah, it is an interesting thing that people are comfortable contaminating their own sites, but
Sure.
because, like I said, because it's state law, the state does have a fine system, and they
Right.
even have a lien process. So if you are that hard-headed and you're not going to fix your broken septic system, even though it's your responsibility, then they can eventually take it to court and force you. They can take legal action against you.
I'm just curious. Thank you.
It's a follow-up question. You said several times the state's coming behind you. Do they have legislation? Sure. Do they have funding to actually come and do it?
That's now who knows?
Okay,
That's always
that's where
fluctuating,
it
right?
happens.
No, but the program that we're a part of is a specific program where they're going to be identifying these specific households. They went by date, basically, so install date, these systems. And the older systems are the ones that are getting checked right now. But yes, so the Department of Health is the one that put this program together with the Department of Environmental Quality, and they have their own regulators that are behind this.
Thank you. Yeah. We're going to have an afternoon session also. If you have any more detailed questions, we can get that. So, get into more detail about these questions a little bit more depth. We're just talking about the fish kill. I can attest to the fact that I got a lot of calls about coulee. There's a bunch of dead fish that pushed up into the coulee in Lafayette where the horse farm. So this was a major problem caused by the flooding. recent flooding. So, and next up, I think Max Greg Jones, will make his little presentation for us.
Merci. All right. So it's interesting that your question was how are you going to? We had a lot of pushback from people who did have septic systems that were actually adding to the problem but still not wanting to do something about it. So I kind of geared this presentation towards addressing climate change skepticism. It's definitely a big topic right now, and I just wanted to address the elephant in the room, right? So everything that we know of on our planet is due to the fact that we're spinning around on this axis, going around the sun, right? So if you looked up in the North Star, and North Star would be one of the smallest circles. This is a time-lapse photography, so if you took one frame of a photograph, and throughout the night, you open the shutter a couple times, this is what the picture would look like as the Earth is spinning around the axis. And then we're going around the sun, right? So as we're going around the sun, spinning on an axis, the sun is heating up our planet. Air is lifting into the atmosphere. Hot air rises, cold air sinks. And between the spinning of our planet and the lifting of water and water vapor and air into our atmosphere, basically we get cellular circulation in our atmosphere. We get wind currents around our planet. And all this is due to the fact that we're heating up from the sun. The sun is lifting water and air into the atmosphere, and then it comes down as it cools off. And not only do we get cellular circulation in the atmosphere, it also creates a circulation in our oceans. This is an interesting little map that I made. So I took the British trade routes, Dutch trade routes, and Spanish trade routes. So our environment and our culture is intimately woven together, right? So the reason why those winds were called the trade winds was because they blew from Europe into the Americas, which is the trade routes that the Europeans took. So not only, so we'll back up a couple slides. Okay, here we go. So you can see how these trade winds are blowing from the east to the west, right? So you put that all together, and the reason why we came to America was because that's where the oceans took us, right? It's where the wind was blowing. We just got on boats and people started sailing. And the places we settled were because that's where the ocean currents washed those boats up upon the shore. Columbus just washed upon South America. So it was not intentional. He went there because of the oceans taking him there. So there's an intimate relationship between the environment and our culture and the seasons. So the fact that we're spinning around on this planet, this orb in space, the axis is pointed pretty much in the same direction towards the North Star, and the seasons going around the sun basically create the temperature fluctuations on our planet. And where climate skeptics get into this is that little rotation right up top, okay? That's called the axial precession. So it takes about, so if you spin a top, you spin it on its head. The top goes around in a circle, but it also makes this larger concentric circle. So that larger concentric circle, they say, takes about 26,000 years to make one precession to where the axis makes it all the way around. And as it does this, it influences global climate and global temperatures. So everyone who's a skeptic is basically referencing this pattern that we see in the longer phase of history. So as we're doing this, the axis isn't always going to be pointed in that direction at that particular time of year. At some point, the axis is going to rotate, and the North Star is not going to be the star in the middle of the sky. it might be Vega or a different star that's closer as the axis is making its circle. So this graph shows hundreds of thousands of years. And we do see a pattern emerging. So the blue is temperatures, and the red is atmospheric carbon dioxide. So this graph is showing us that there is a correlation between atmospheric carbon dioxide and global temperatures. However, they also come in patterns, right? So most climate skeptics will reference this graph right here, and basically it's which came first, the chicken or the egg, right? Did the carbon dioxide come first and then the temperatures rise, or did the temperatures rise and the carbon dioxide follow, right? So that is pretty much the argument that most people are using to deny the fact that our global climate is changing. So this next graph takes that same graph, but you can see the little hockey puck on the other side. So 1950 levels, carbon dioxide in the atmosphere was right around 310 parts per million. Right now, carbon dioxide levels are right at about 400 parts per million. And even with the cycles that our planet goes through naturally, because of the progression of the axis, we're still way above any sort of average carbon dioxide levels in our atmosphere to date. And of course, this is what life was like before tractors. And life is tough, you know? I mean, I guarantee you, my grandparents did everything they could to bring us to this day and age to where we didn't have to live those lives of working so hard. And then the steam engines came. Tractors just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Now we have mega farms that are plowing through the earth, and is this a good or a bad thing? We all eat very good, actually, in the United States. We eat so good in the United States that our biggest problem is obesity. One of our biggest problems. All these different ailments that come with having too much. We're like very pampered. Uh-oh, what's this? Yeah, okay. That was interesting. Okay, it was loading. So, even though the science is very overwhelming, showing us that we're putting way too much carbon dioxide into our atmosphere, we know that there's a correlation between carbon dioxide and atmospheric temperatures. It's hard to see that, right? It's hard for normal people to see and comprehend how carbon dioxide levels are affecting global climate change. However, this is a problem that cannot be denied, right? The fact that we have a society that's based on throwing things away, right? We go to the grocery store, and because we've moved from small farms into large mega farms and getting most of our groceries from the store, all that stuff has to be packaged. As it's packaged, it comes into the city, we enjoy it at our tables as we eat, and then that packaging doesn't always make it to where it needs to go. And this is actually one of our projects on the river between the Bayou district and Lafayette Consolidated Government. This is a trash trap. And in 2014, that's 38 tons of trash removed. That's not counting couches, ice boxes, refrigerators, everything else.
That's on the Vermilion River?
This is not on the Vermilion River.
Okay.
This is actually on a coulee that actually drains into the Vermilion River. Yes, this is not even the entire river. This is just one coulee that drains into the river. There's multiple coulees that drain into the river. Let's see if I can go back. No, this is not Photoshop. Not at all. That's one picture. Actually, I hope this comes up. That's all. Oh man. Unfortunately, this slide is actually, it doesn't look like it's going to come up. I don't have the actual video on this computer, so it's not accessing it. But this slide is actually a 30-second video clip of watching a choo-choo train of trash coming down the river during a rain event and actually filling up one of these booms right here. So this happens every time it rains. Every single time it rains. This trap gets emptied out how often? At least once a month, sometimes twice. 12 to 15 times a year. There you go. So as we're dealing with plastics and trash that's getting into our environment, it's getting into the food chain, right? So this little fish, whenever it was cut open, these are all little bitty pieces of plastic that were inside the fish's belly. Now the plastic itself is fairly harmless, but there are certain chemicals that like to attach to plastics. And those chemicals, whenever they attach to the plastics, they're going to be getting into this little fish, as the fish now has plastic in its belly. And the plastic isn't really going to break down, but whatever chemicals that have attached to the plastic, I don't know how many of you guys get into outdoor gear, but I can't stand plastic shirts because after a while wearing them outside and sweating in them, the plastic actually absorbs odor much faster and stronger than a cotton shirt. So I love cotton because of that. So getting into that, basically the plastic is holding on to stuff that normal materials won't. There's a whale, autopsy, I think they had over 100 plastic bags in this whale. It was basically the cause of death. Albatrosses, they're always flying above the sea. There's not too much left in the oceans. Right now, if you took a sample in this red dot right here, so basically as the currents of the ocean are turning, the plastic is piling up in our world's oceans. And if you took a sample of this water in the world's oceans, the amount of plastic to plankton is sometimes 40 to 1. Or 40 pieces of plastic to 1 piece of plankton in our world's oceans. So we're actually beginning to smother in our own pollution. Little history, by the year 2050, it's projected that we'll have more plastic in our world's oceans than we will have fish. So even though carbon dioxide is hard to see, the fact that we're drowning in our own waste, drowning in our own plastic is very clear. Now, I did this little graph as about plastics and recycling, the history of recycling. So every time we've had progress in recycling, it's because there was a squeeze in the industry, right? So we look at the Europeans. The Europeans are way ahead of us when addressing climate change and the environment issues. That's because they burned through their resources hundreds of years ago and then burned through half of the United States resources. Louisiana is one of the last places where we still have an overabundance of natural resources. We have plenty of water, plenty of oil, we have all the resources that we can manage. So there's nothing telling us that we need to do something different. We're not lacking resources. So I tell everybody, if we ever make progress on the environment in Louisiana, it's almost a moral victory because we're not forced by the environment to change. If we change, it's because we're doing it because it's the right reason. And one of the last things, this is a horrible picture. It's not showing up really good. But this is a graph of the temperatures of the year and spikes in the river from our sampling program. And basically, each spike is because it's raining. But the height of the spike is directly proportional to the temperature of the water. In the wintertime, we have spikes, but the colony count isn't as high as it is in the summertime. So as the climate does change, one of the biggest problems we're going to have is actually dealing with biological diseases. So sea level rise, these are all things to take into account, but not everybody's going to be affected by the sea level. Not everybody's going to be affected by water shortages. Not everybody's going to be affected by resource shortages, but every single person on the planet is going to be affected by the fact that biological activity increases tenfold with every degree. So if we raise our global temperatures 2 degrees, that means biological activity increases tenfold. So if people are needing an alarm to act, this is definitely the alarm, and being able to combat that globally. So I'm going to leave you with this. As we're looking into outer space for other planets to live on, it's like looking in a haystack for a needle when you're the needle. You're the actual needle in the haystack, and you're looking for another needle. This is it, y'all. This is the planet.
I have a quick question for Greg. We're going to our next presenter. I'd also like to point out that Lily Voorhees has arrived. She's in the house with us, Lily. Her dog is safe at home. Okay, not running the streets. And also I'd like to point out that we have two other, two other members of our BBD staff here, Lauren Carter. Excuse me, I'm still learning her name. And Mr. Chris Holland also. Emil. This is BBD Day, so I'd like to present also one of our board members. Yes.
First of all, Greg and Emil did a lot of work for me here to talk about zero waste. When I was a kid, my dad used to take us to it's a cheniere down on the coast. It's about 20 miles south of Lafayette as the egret flaps. This is a picture of Cheniere right here. He'd take us camping there, and I would see a lot of trash on the beach, and I thought it was from other people who camped at Cheniere. I thought they left half-empty mayonnaise jars, light bulbs and glass bottles, and it always confused me because I never saw other people camping at Cheniere. It's infested with mosquitoes. It's very difficult camping as I look back on it now. And eventually, my dad explained. He said, "No, that's not from other people camping here. It's washing up from the Gulf of Mexico." Like, okay. As the years passed, we'd go there regularly. Then we started finding, I found once, I remember, a can that had Vietnamese writing on it. And in my kid brain, I was certain it had floated all the way there from Vietnam. Never mind, it came from an Asian grocery store, and the Vietnamese shrimpers were drinking this stuff on their boats right off the shore. But when in the 1970s, that was when we first started going out there, and one of my favorite things to find would be beach glass. You kind of kick through the sand and look for pieces of beach glass of different colors. But what I noticed as time went on is that kicking through the sand, it's harder and harder to find beach glass. And what you find are those that goes in the gut of that fish. Where was that fish caught?
That was in the Pacific.
What you find are, the bottles that have broken down are plastic, and they've left behind these little beach plastic. It's not as cool to collect in jars. It doesn't look the same. And so I was in the library once, and I saw a book called Plastic Ocean by Charles Moore. He's a sailor who somehow got into the scientific community. He was returning from a race, and he went through the Pacific, was it North Pacific Gyre? I think that's where, and he discovered this garbage patch, which Greg was talking about. If you sample, it's not an actual floating island of trash out there. It is a place where if you sample the water, there are more plastics to plankton in that area. But Charles Moore discovered that, and he wrote a book called The Plastic Ocean, which really captured my imagination, and it made me realize that we've got to turn off the spigot of single-use plastics and trash in our life. And also in working with a friend of mine, Amanda Waddell. She and I were talking one day, and she confessed. I didn't know her at this time, but she confessed a love of trash. We became fast friends. And she and I, who have a daughter, we have daughters in the school system in Lafayette. We together pushed the school system to start recycling a lot of the paper and plastics that they produce in the school system. And she really drove home for me this concept of zero waste and how it is the only way for us to go. Recycling often gets pushed over into the realm of, oh, that's a great idea. I love that idea. Can we do that? Can we recycle? And then when someone finds out it costs to recycle, it's a business, it's complicated, it's dirty, it's not always profitable, it relies on the global market, then people are like, oh, well, maybe the Boy Scouts will do it, or maybe the Girl Scouts will do it. And it's not as exciting when people realize it's complicated. But recycling does fit into this concept of zero waste as a small part of it. And I've put up there a fancy definition of zero waste that you can read for yourself. It's basically a rethinking of how we produce things so that we mimic nature. You know, you eat a banana and you're walking down the street and you throw the peel on the ground. Big whoop. I mean, if we all did it, yeah, it would be nasty. We don't want rotting food all over the street. But nature has designed packaging that is perfect. And we are smart people. We can do the same. We can figure out how to produce packaging that should it escape, should it end up in cooling bean, it disintegrates and does not harm the wildlife by getting into its stomach and attracting pollutants, but actually becomes back as part of nature. The concept that's part of zero waste is cradle to cradle design. It's designing, and this was developed by an architect, William McDonough, who said that as we design things, there's no need for them to be harmful. He created a type of fabric that he said it contains no chemicals that you couldn't ingest. And his suggestion is if you're in the Airbus, there's an airplane that has adopted this fabric for their airliner seats. He says if you ever find yourself stranded in one of these airplanes and you're hungry, you can eat the seat. Because it's that friendly. But cradle-to-cradle design is designing something so that if there is waste produced or when the product is finished being used, it can be used for something else. And I'm not talking about cutting the top off a plastic water bottle and sticking a flower in it, but actually that whatever is created could go into another product or compost. Yeah, recycling is cool. I think that's been working with Louisiana when we were pushing for recycling in the school system, but the realization was that, it's complicated. We visited a lot of the materials reclamation facilities. There's one in Baton Rouge. We visited the one in Mary where Lafayette's trash gets taken, and we visited one in Houston. And it's a complicated business, and a lot of people in Lafayette are sad that glass is not accepted in our curbside recycling anymore. And yeah, I'm sad about that too, but you know what? It's not the way to get glass recycled. When you throw it in your curbside bin, it gets dirty. It becomes useless once it's been mixed with all the other trash, and it's really, really difficult to handle. So recycling is a part of it. Yes, recycling is cool, but it's only a small part of the picture. The Grassroots Recycling Network, these are the 3 top ways that zero waste recycling affect climate change, or are part of the solution to managing climate change, and that it takes less energy to use recycled materials than it does to go and dig them out of the earth, especially petroleum products. And of course, with paper, you're chopping down trees if you're using the virgin material, and then reducing landfilling and incineration cuts and the thing. But we don't have much of a push for incinerators here in Louisiana because we have an abundance of land. But I don't know the answer to this question. Do we have any incinerators in Louisiana? Yeah, waste incinerators. And a lot of way waste incinerators are being pushed right now is that it's burn your trash for energy. But what they don't tell you is that when you burn your trash for energy, you're left with a quarter of it is toxic ash. Because they burn it, and we do get energy. They have to scrub all the smoke, smoke gets scrubbed, and all those toxins are left in a toxic ash that then has to be landfilled. So when you see that, waste to energy, as far as burning goes, it's not necessarily a good idea. And I'm going to go through a few ways that we personally can aim for zero waste. Of course, I love it when we come in, there's an event like this and we don't have bottled water or styrofoam cups. But that's not the norm at most events in this area. So if you square them off, then of course you're left to bring your own dishes. If you're not going to use a styrofoam cup or a plastic bag, you have to use your own dishes. I have another thing here, put the plate back in plate lunch. I've been to several plate lunch places where you can go to the counter and you have to request a dish, because even if you plan to stay there, they will serve it to you in a styrofoam clamshell, because it just feels right, I guess. Although the cuisine de mama at Vermilion is now using the biodegradable to-go boxes, but that's a place where you can go, but if you're gonna stay, put the plate back in your plate lunch. Don't take that. Of course, my blog, opt out of junk mail. Figure out recycling in your area. Does this area have a recycling plant curbside here in Onville?
Yes.
We do. And we do in Lafayette too. The challenge has been when we change contracts, then there's a whole list of things they don't take. But there's also other ways that you can get rid of trash. There's the plastic film recycling that grocery stores do. There's glass. You can go sneak it in at the Target shopping centers. We have our toxic waste disposal days in Lafayette twice a year. Textiles. Who has St. Teresa's? Is she still?
Yes.
You have St. Teresa's. I bet, do you get a lot of clothes that you take donations? Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you get a lot of clothes that you then cannot sell because they're either torn or...
Yes, we do. And then we give it to Goodwill.
You take it back?
What we don't want, we give it to Goodwill. But if it's dirty or torn, we throw it away.
Right, we don't. There is, I know, and I'm not sure if Goodwill does it. I know Salvation Army does it. They take textiles that are not sellable, they bale them, and they send them to countries that would like to buy huge bales of our waste textiles. And then those actually can be ground up and new fabrics can be made. And I believe Levi Strauss has a goal by 2025 to have their jeans made of all recycled cotton. I'd love to see how that happens. But yeah, so even textiles can be, like I know in Lafayette, if you put the things that are dirty or torn in a bag and write rags on it, it'll go straight to their baler, and then it will stay out of the waste stream. Another thing, encourage groups and events to aim for zero waste, and join No Waste Louisiana, help us figure it out. But in encouraging groups, I think our festivals here in this area are a great way to educate the public about producing less waste. I've been working with Pat Mould a little bit with Festival Caribbean and Creole. Of course, Greg has his recycling bins there, and that festival, as well as Festival International, have really, really stepped out and done very good by recycling. And what No Waste Louisiana is trying to push these festivals for now is to reduce the waste, reduce the recycling even, encourage durable cups that can be, and they have that at Festival International for sure. But yeah, a lot of times if you pressure your family and friends to use their real dishes, then you end up washing the dishes. So they have that up there, offer to wash the dishes. My father is a scoutmaster, and he's been a leader of a scout troop for for about 30 years now, I think. And he says what he's noticed over the past 30 years is the Scouts don't bring canteens anymore. They bring a 6-pack of some sort of plastic bottle drink. So I have up here, you know, when you're working with kids or you're working at a volunteer event, tell people bring their reusable water bottles from their canteen. It's just another thing there. And what Noe Louisiana would really like to get to in this state is to move people beyond thinking that going zero waste is just something that the quirky, environmentally minded people need to do. But that it's something that is going to have to happen. And like Greg said, for us, with our abundance of resources, our abundance of space, it's going to have to be a moral victory to convince people that this is the way we need to go. But the pressure to me is on when you go down by Vermilion and you see the plastic bags hanging in the trees and you see the amount of trash. To me, the pressure is on. Like even, I think, but then I'm a freak about trash, so. What's that? Okay, I'm almost done. But so I have up here, you know, beyond just changing your own habits, put the pressure on. Ask schools, businesses, nonprofits, you know, who have waste contracts, ask them to renegotiate these contracts. I don't know if any of our local waste handlers have a pay-as-you-throw option. That more applies to actually curbside collection. But when it comes to a business, you know, if you can reduce your dumpster size for pickups, you can reduce the price so that you can afford recycling. And a lot of people don't realize that because they're just like, ho-hum, this is what we pay for trash, and if I add a recycling dumpster, it's going to be even more. Good God, it's too expensive, we can't do it. But if you reduce your overall waste, it could be economically viable. Call your city council members. I toured City Hall the other day. They actually, every time you call them, they make an email note, they make a paper note, and they file it, and it's all on record. So if enough of us call, it could make a difference. But call your legislature, ask for extended producer responsibility, which means you're asking for the people who create all this egregious packaging to somehow either be taxed on it, so that then those taxes could be used to reclaim them and recycle them or reuse them. But that's one way of trying to get them to either cut back on packaging or reclaim it once it's out there. And rethink and redesign. I guess I'm speaking to the artists. It seems like all of you are some sort of artist in addition to your day job. But to rethink and redesign. And I have traveled and learned. There's lots of cities around this, our nation, that have good programs in place for reducing their waste. These are a few books that I recommend. Plastic Ocean was one that really turned me on to this need for reducing the single-use plastics in my life. But also Overdressed, that's one about the textile industry that might be interesting to you in your clothing store.
We have someone that picks them up and brings them to Lafayette.
Right. So they eventually are probably getting recycled if they're going through some place like Goodwill or Salvation Army that does mail and sell their unsellable textiles. And also one like the Laudate it's an encyclical written by Pope Francis that has a lot of meaty, inspirational information. Even if you're not Catholic or spiritually bent, he does have some very good advice in that.
Thank you, Catherine. Yeah, you're right. It's a very educational shift in changing mentalities. And a couple of quick stories to go on to Brandon's presentation. As you might know, in France, there's no plastic bags or even paper bags in the department in the shopping supermarkets. And that was actually very easy for them to do because they already have this farmer's market mentality where the French go to their farmers market every Saturday, choosing depending on what village is the design and designated that it'll be, and they'll bring their own baskets. They have beautiful baskets also. So that was not too hard for them. So we have to have a mentality change where people will start bringing their own baskets and get rid of these plastic bags, which is such an eyesore and an environmental danger, quite frankly, as we saw. Another thing is, I think it's just our approach to public versus private property. Also, just a little anecdote. We caught one of our board members, or former board members, was telling me the story that he caught somebody parked in a car and just threw his junk right out the car window. He was sitting there in the park, and the guy went up to him and said, "Hey, what you doing, throwing your trash out the window like that?" And he says, and I quote, "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought this was public property." So you think, oh, you can't throw trash in somebody's yard, that's against the law, but this is my property, this is public, so I can trash it if I want. And quite frankly, I think that's a mentality that a lot of people have. So it's something we have to educate the public about, to start bringing their own bags to the store. I know we've been doing that. Well, my wife's French, she's been doing that even before it became, cool home, I guess you could say. And just educating people that just don't throw your trash out the window. So Brandon?
What we understand about the Earth and this thing called climate is it's always changing. So this whole thing about, since November, a big argument about climate change denial is just absurd. It's not based on any kind of material evidence. It's based on fiction, right? So, but I think that's their ideology, right? So I think that's one of the big things. I mean, overwhelmingly, scientists, over 20,000 papers just in the past 5 years, support this idea that climate is definitely changing. 97% of scientists that study climate say that it's being accelerated because of human activity, not just the burning of fossil fuels, but actually agriculture and other things too. But look at the difference with the public opinion in the United States. Now this is a poll from 2014. I have no idea what it would be like now, or what it's going to be like in 3 years, or what it's going to be like in 20 years when we have kids that have gone through the public education system where they're not allowed to talk about climate change. Do you see what I mean? So these things make me really nervous, and I like to reference this slide a lot. It's actually my Facebook profile. Science is not a liberal conspiracy, right? Because it really isn't. It's based on consensus. It's the closest thing that we as humanity have come up with the idea of understanding physical phenomena, giving a suggestion of what's happening, and then trying to understand it. And it's always changing, right? So if you don't believe something in science, that's fine. Do a science paper that disproves it. That's the point. It's about building up a body of evidence over centuries. So I like to say science is not a liberal conspiracy, but art might be. So I'm going to be mostly talking about art. Anyway, so decide for yourself on climate. I'm not going to go into this again because Greg covered it really well, just the kind of impacts that I think we should all be concerned with, why we should care, and what's happening now. Of course, where we are in Louisiana has been brought up before. But my big question is, what can art do about this? So this is kind of a question for you all. What do you all think? I mean, these are just some, I think education is key. But also, and I should have put this on there, inform is kind of part of education, but I think also inspire, right? Because art can educate, but I don't think it's in the same way that perhaps math can educate or geography in the same way. Art can educate, but I think it can also inspire in a way and ask questions that are really metaphoric and to get you thinking about things that perhaps science can't. In the 1990s, an art historian came up with this idea that basically art dealing with ecology and environmental issues helped to frame these kind of ecological issues, bring them to the public focus, but also by bringing them to public focus, push towards change from politicians and corporations. So if you get a chance, this book is on Amazon. It's pretty cheap. It's out of print. It's from 1992, and it's pretty amazing. I brought a bunch of art and ecology books, but I think I loaned this to somebody, and I can't remember who I loaned it to, so I need to buy another copy too. But I just looked it up the other night because I was trying to find it, and I think it's like $20 or less on Amazon. But it's great. It's a really, really good book on the history of art and ecology, up to 1992, and I'll talk about another one later. So the idea of kind of education, inspiring, kind of exhibiting. Anybody gosh, it's hard to see. This is a really beautiful painting in the Smithsonian collection by a guy named Alexis Rockman. I don't know, can anybody make out those architectural structures? What's that? Not a barn, it's underwater. There's a big, let me see. Okay. You can kind of see the city there a little bit. Anybody recognize the city, maybe? Nobody did one of those too. How many folks have been across the Brooklyn Bridge? A few? Yeah? Okay, so this is the Brooklyn Bridge underwater in, say, 200-300 years. So what Alexis does is, he's a painter. But and he does kind of do his science fiction painting, but they're huge scale. So they're kind of like 19th century grandiose landscape paintings. But they're often futuristic, kind of apocalyptic, but they're based on science. So he collaborates with climate scientists, he collaborates with fish biologists, he collaborates with insect people, bug people, to kind of see what the future might be. And so this is just an example of, unfortunately, you lose all the detail. It's a beautiful painting with lots of species that are already kind of coming in and occupying the Hudson River and the East River. So some of these species are already there. 300 years from now, there's probably going to be a lot more of them. So totally different approach. Everybody's gone to a wedding before where you have a nice ice sculpture. Yeah. So this is a group it's a Danish artist. So what's inside is actually a skeleton of a polar bear. Polar bears have been kind of used a lot in the past 10 years as a metaphor for climate change in art. So you see them showing up again and again in art. So what happened is this was shown in Copenhagen, and it's called the ice bear. And basically he wanted people to come and touch the bear, kind of to have this connection as it was melting away. And it was during the climate summit that was going on in Paris in 2015. Another one that was installed in Paris, a little more direct with a message. Can everybody see what that is? Okay, shoot. It's hard to, that is a life-size bronze polar bear that's being stabbed by a thermometer. So a little graphic, a little confrontational, put in front of one of the Parliament buildings in Paris. And then a totally different approach. This is a group of artists from England, Dan Aykroyd and Heather Harvey. They went to the Arctic Circle, they found polar bear bones, they brought them back to their studio in England, they then burned them, pulverized the bones, and then had them manufactured into a diamond. So this idea of something fragile being transformed into something super hard that will last forever. So it was just kind of a metaphor to question this idea of fragility of nature. As you can see, it's a pretty diamond. This is another public art installation, Olafur Ellison. So these are actually chunks of glaciers set up in a clock, like 12 hands of the clock. And these represent, basically, they were removed from a glacier that had fallen in Iceland. So they shipped them all the way to Paris for the climate summit, set them up in this square. And then as they were melting, it's 112 tons of Greenland ice, which is about the amount lost every 100th of a second due to climate change. That's the guesstimate. So you imagine, this is just a teeny, if you had 100 more fields of these, this is what would be lost every second according to climate modeling. And so that's changing, of course, very quickly. It's increasing. Another one, a little more metaphoric. This is a street artist. He does ceramics, and they go travel around the world setting up these temporary installations out of ceramics. So this was in Berlin, and these were supposed to be the heads of politicians, kind of just doing whatever they're doing. Human scale. So, I mean, our scale.
So they're actually human size.
They're human size, except, of course, it's just the bus, you know, just from here up.
Right.
So he did this other really creepy one where there were all these politicians kind of in beaches. So you just saw the heads kind of coming out of the surf and out of the sand. But he just kind of, it's like his form of tagging, I guess. His form of like graffiti art. And then another kind of graffiti artist, Eve Mosher, sort of. So you know when you go to a baseball field and they put down the lines? So what she did is she got some of those, and she worked with teams of people to travel around looking at the way that Manhattan was going to be inundated with water, and she made those marks. And so it was a whole thing about this public conversation. As she was doing it, of course, everybody's like, what in the world are you doing? And then she described what the project was. She showed them the map, and it was this whole idea of kind of education, right? Now, when I did, so these are more metaphorical, I mean, interventionalist projects, but then there's a whole other side. I like this, art is not a mirror to hold up society, but a hammer with which to shape it, right? So this is this other idea that art is an active force in shaping culture, transforming or sculpting culture. Right? So, also in the 90s, but later, Amy Lipton and Sue Spade both, one is a curator and an artist, the other is an art historian. They came up with this term called ecovention. And there's a book over here about the catalog that went to this show in 2002. But the idea started even early in the 1980s. How many people know this guy, Joseph Beuys? One. For art, two, couple. For contemporary art, he's probably one of the top 10 most influential that transformed ideas in art. Because he thought that art could be just what Brett said, this way of transforming society through ideology. So basically, like almost like viral knowledge. You get people inspired, you push for change. He was one of the founders of the Green Party in Germany. I mean, as an artist, he was running for parliament as an artist, founding the Green Party. But then he started doing all kinds of things like actions where he would get people together to protect sacred areas, sacred wetlands. This was a project where he was invited, there's something called Documenta in Germany, which is a huge arts festival. He was invited to do public artwork. So instead of a standard public artwork, he planted 7,000 oak trees with thousands of people over the course of like decades. So he died actually in the middle of this process. But the idea being that it was that art again could be an action, a tool, a way of training people to plant and take back land. So re-green the city of Kassel. I'll just show you a few more. This is one in Dallas. Patricia Johansson, this is a wetland restoration project. So this is all recycled rubber and plastic that were then made into these kind of islands that look like big roots. They were informed by different plants that she was inspired by. And this kind of structure created habitat for turtles and plants, and it was a restoration project. But at a huge scale. It's like a 10-acre pond outside the Dallas Museum of Art and the Natural History Museum. Then a guy in Florida, named Xavier Cortado, what he does is he clones mangroves and does that as kind of like, he would fill this whole building with these little cups, little glasses, filled with baby mangroves, waits for them to get a certain scale, and then takes them out and reseeds. Like, again, like habitat restoration, especially mangroves, which are so good for coastal erosion, slowing down coastal erosion. And then there's this whole tradition of guerrilla gardening. Right, so how many people have heard of a seed bomb? Yeah, a couple? We're gonna make seed bombs with kids a couple weekends if you wanna come over at our place in Sicilia to do prairie restoration. Basically, the idea was in the 1970s, a bunch of artists got fed up with the way that New York City looked like a battle zone. So it's really started in the Bronx and the East Village. So these were really dangerous areas in the 1970s. So they came up with these intricate schemes to mix soil and seeds together, and then they would regreen urban lots. And so they really started the whole kind of community garden movement in the 1970s in New York City, which is huge still. But then that really became an art form for other artists. This is a West Coast-based artist making seed bombs. So she'll make them like little houses, and then she'll just kind of legally or otherwise, I mean, the best I can tell, there's no place that it's illegal to throw seeds. So that's always a question I had with my students when we were making seed bombs. Is this legal? Like, I think so, as long as you don't throw them in a building or hit somebody. And then they grow. Because by doing that, what you're doing is you're making a little packet for the seeds to stay moist. You have food in there for them, so it just gives them a leg up, especially in areas that are kind of degraded. So flipping over to a totally different thing about fuel. This is a Danish group called Superflex. They're DJs, artists. They've worked with indigenous tribes in South America making soda and beer. And then basically by making this small industry, what they did is they helped the tribe sell this beer internationally so they could raise money to buy their land. And then this is a project they did in Africa, and they did another one in India, where they would go to these rural locations, and they would help people make methane capturing devices out of basically manure of some kind, or plant matter. And then these off-grid communities could then have electricity. And by having electricity, their big goal was to give them internet access so they could figure out legally how they could fight to save their land. 2 minutes? Okay. German artist making biofuel cells as public artwork. So growing algae, and then allowing that to decompose and then produce gas that can be used for electricity. So this is supposed to be a big battery. And I was going to talk a little bit about my project. Maybe I could do it more casually. I'll just show you one example. I'm working with, I'm a postdoc at LSU, but it's an art science project where I'm trying to get shrimpers and citizens involved and trying to look at coastal locations. Following the oil spill, there are about 77 species of fish in the Gulf of Mexico that are found nowhere else on the planet. As far as we know, there's probably a lot more. But since the oil spill, there are 14 species that are missing. So I'm trying to travel around, working with school groups and doing the science work, but trying to encourage citizen science, but also through an art context. So inviting artists to create these treasure chests, curiosity cabinets that I bring to beaches and I bring to fishing piers, and I just like set them up and start to talk to people and then try to ask them if they've seen these fish. So if you've seen these fish, please let me know. We're trying to find them. And then I also have, if you look in the back, cleared and stained specimens, which I don't really have time to explain, but it's a chemical process, so you'll actually see a specimen or several specimens that look just like that. It's like a 3D X-ray. So they're kind of really neat to see. And I can study the anatomy of fish that way to see if they were impacted from the oil spill or other things. But I just want to end with this, because I think it's really relevant to what we're all trying to do in our daily lives. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And so thank you all very much. Looking forward to talking to you.
Thank you very much, Brian. That was a very good marriage of art and science there. I think it's something very important to help change the mentality of the people understand what's going on here. And as you break down, back to Millie, come up and make her presentation.
Thank you for this morning. I feel like I'm walking away with so much knowledge. Really have a lot of questions too. Looking forward to this afternoon. If you feel comfortable, close your eyes. I have a poem I'd like to share with you from a project that I've been working on since 2013 called Bayou. You can know this about any place. Someone loved it, someone lost it. And the people who love it now came ragamuffin refugees, washed up, wretched, empty-handed, muttering a deal they made with this place. What bled for them in pity to feed their dirty, cold children. For the sea had been hard on them, and they were strong, but they were not fish. And they said they would love the land, and put by from their stores to feed it and pay back what the land had given. And their children would live amongst the gamma grass and the roseau cane, and they would call this place kin. And they would spin fine stories and songs of the old country to keep the land company. And these songs, they would tie into their nets and stretch them across the sky to haul in a load of stars to twinkle with the tide. And so great was their bounty, and so deep was their gratitude and reverence. And when they died, they would go under the water and wait as fish to hear the oldest song sung by the youngest heirs. And they would leap into the nets to feed their own kin, and the cycle would begin again. A dear friend of mine, Moose Jackson, wrote that. And I just think it's like my new best friend. I just recently started performing again with Cry One, and they asked me to learn that piece. And I think that, talking about climate change and land loss and toxic waste pits and waterways and plastics everywhere, it gets a little overwhelming sometimes. It's like, what? And it's hard to know where to focus your energy. I started doing documentary work in the late 90s when I returned home to South Louisiana, and my grandmother started bringing me back to her home, which is in Terrebonne-Lafourche Parish. She's from a place called Pointe aux Chiens, Point au Chien, some people say, Point of the Oaks or Point of the Dog. There's a debate, but the irony is that the Point of the Oaks, La Pointe, all of the oak trees are dying because of saltwater intrusion. I'm a citizen of the United Homa Nation. I'm a resident of St. Bernard Parish. And I sit on the tribal council now for the Homa, representing St. Bernard and Plaquemines parishes. And, I've been working in this world of art for a long time. The form changes a lot. At one point I called myself a documentary photographer, and then people started calling me a filmmaker. I made one film. I don't know if I'll ever make another film because that's like a long, laborious process. And it's a very personal story about my life specifically, but an intergenerational story. So really putting 100-year parentheses around what's happened here in South Louisiana and the cycle of environmental injustice, starting with the Homa being pushed to the ends of the earth, to then, the oil and gas companies coming in and essentially stealing the land rights away, and then dredging oil and gas canals, and then putting waste pits in the backyards of my cousins who live in a small community called Grand Bois, which is just south of the Intercoastal Waterway, just north of some of the fastest deteriorating land on the planet. To then, of course, Katrina being this climax of our film, but the BP drilling disaster really being the capstone, right? And it was, my collaborators and I were trying to come to a conclusion with the film. We'd been in post-production for a while, and when BP happened, it was like, perfect ending, It's that, from the not in my backyard mentality to, this is not happening in the nation's backyard. Is it? Oh yeah, it is. Oh, it's gonna happen for 3 months. Which, just to remind everyone, yesterday was the 7-year anniversary of BP. And I was reading this morning that, there's this huge oil mat that's still on the seafloor. So, when I travel with the film, often people are like, well, how is Louisiana now? And I'm like, well, it's worse than it was before. Our conditions have not changed. We actually have less land. We actually have more deep water oil and gas that's on the horizon, and that's happening here. In the Gulf of Mexico, shale oil is doing the most extreme extraction in the world. It's some of the deepest waters in the world. And our Gulf of Mexico, with this new administration, is wide open, right? So they used to do these tracts of lease sales. So it would just be the central or the western or the little bit of the eastern, and now they're just like every lease sale, 73 million acres up for sale. As they're taking deep water drilling off the table for the Atlantic and the Arctic. Well, with the new administration, things may change, but I say all of that because I've been thinking about all of these things a lot, and I've been attending a lot of these community meetings recently about the coastal master plan, the 2017 plan just came out, was just approved. The governor sent, the feds a notice, we're in a state of emergency with coastal land loss. It happened like 2 days ago. We all know it's been urgent for decades now. Where we go and how we adapt, I think, is what I've been thinking about a lot, especially with this new terminology of non-structural adaptation, which for the Homa, we live at the ends of the bayous, we are at the ends of the roads, we are outside levee protection, we are at the Ile de Jean Charles, which Ile de Jean Charles just received a $48 million grant for relocation, the first federal climate relocation grant ever. So, we are on the front lines. We are, we're setting the precedents. And I think it's really important for us to get this right, and I think it's really important for us to empower our citizens to not rely on our government to make the decisions for us, but really to be proactive in this transition. And so, when I did the Cry You one in 2013, I had this geodesic dome. My collaborators were like, will you please just set this up on the land, we just need a structure. And then that structure became a portal in the play where the audience would go from one world to the next. So from the real world to the dream world. And that portal, they had to go through my dome. And I was there and I would give them this little seed. And when they approached it, it looked like a traditional palmetto hut. And then when they got inside, there were all of these photographs, and we would sit in a circle and I would tell them a story and send them on their way. And that really was such an because I'd been going to all these community meetings, for years about the coast and land loss and with the oil spill, and it really was like getting people under the same roof, sitting in circle, looking at each other. It kind of broke down all those walls, and I recognized that we need alternative spaces to have these conversations about what's going to happen to our communities and how we are going to transition. And so the Land Memory Bank was born out of that. And so there's a lot of moving parts to this project. It's been going on for a couple of years. And I'll just I couldn't find my PowerPoint earlier. This tree is in my backyard in St. Bernard Parish. And I had a arborist come out once, and he was like, Monique, this tree maybe started growing like 500 years ago. And it kind of blew my mind. It's like, wow, Columbus was discovering America. This tree was just doing its thing, and it's still just doing its thing. This here is so I've been doing the Land Memory Bank now for 3 years in St. Bernard Parish, and every year we set it up. There are these transparent photographs, which I'll be leaving into the installation for tomorrow's festival. So there's photographs, there's maps, people are invited to come in, and I think the real magic happens when people come inside. I always describe the structure as just being the carrot to get people to be curious, and then they come inside, and it's the conversations and the stories. This is an old plantation map, so you see the Mississippi going down, and then this little ridge that goes out towards the east of St. Bernard Parish, just above what is Lake Leary, that's the old Bayou Terrebonne Ridge, which is where I was born and spent most of my life. And Terrebonne, it was the land of bison. This is one of the furthest points that the buffalo roamed in southeast of the United States. So this was the Cry You one, as I was describing, as people would approach. They thought it was this palmetto structure, and then they would come in, and I was inside with these. So this is where it all was kind of born, and it was really, I during that time was talking about this levee structure. So we have a 32-foot high federal levee, world-class levee that's sinking. They say they only finished it a couple of years ago. It's already sunk between 3 and 6 and maybe more feet. And the Army Corps says there's nothing to worry about. They just put in another $1 million monitoring system, and they didn't coat the sheet piling, so it might be rusting, but that's a whole other story. So this was the first Land Memory Bank that we did in St. Bernard a few years ago. And it's been really great, it's connecting with community. The cultural happenings in these pop-ups bring so much life to the informing the work and kind of steering it. And really, when I dreamed about it, I wanted it to be a community collaboration. So this is, one part is we pop it up, we hand out native pollinators, some prairie grasses if people want it. Most people don't want prairie grasses, but you know, we have flowers, and little kids, they love it. Like, they've never seen seeds before. You know, it's funny, they'll come in, they're like, what do I do with this? It's like, you put it in the ground and you water it, you know? So that's really great. And then another part is that, you know, we have South Louisianians, especially South Louisianians living in the disaster zone, have been quite studied by many entities, institutions, anthropologists, historians. And I've been really, you know, my Louisiana love definitely for me was creating a record, you know, to understand the history of the Homa. As a young woman, it was hard for me to get that knowledge. I mean, my grandmother could tell me what she knew, but she doesn't know you know, she didn't really know that the Homa originally had a major settlement at what is Angola. You know, that actually Angola is Indian ground, sacred Indian ground. But you know, so me just trying to figure out, you know, who we are, where we come from, how we got here. That was really an intention for my Louisiana Love, and also to give that to the kids to say, hey, look, we didn't end up with waste pits in our backyard. Actually, we are from this beautiful, amazing, magical place called the Mississippi River Delta. That is an important PowerPoint for the planet. So it's just some more land memory stuff. And so this was, I work with a studio in the woods. I've been a past resident. I was a resident there in 2017, a restoration resident. And I actually started my Louisiana Love at that time in 2007, and it's funny, it's been 10 years, and so I'm back at a studio in the woods as part of their, what they're calling adaptations residency. And so this residency is completely geared towards climate change and artists. And a studio in the woods is definitely trying to bridge that gap between art and science, and are real advocates for the importance of that. Scientists aren't always the best communicators. Artists don't always have all the information that they need and can create art that's very spectacular but not very informative. And so finding ways to work together, especially in regards to climate, just as Brendan was saying, you know, we need to reimagine the world we live in, because this dream there's a really dark side to it that we're all feeling the effects of. So this was a while back that I have this boat now, the ferry, we're calling it the ferry, which hopefully we'll start traveling around and can do community garden work. But I'm right now just for the first time really taking the Land Memory Babe on the road. And so being here is the first time for me being out of my comfort zone, even though I feel very comfortable here in Arnaudville. I always say that, you know, I found Arnaudville as an evacuee. I had never been west of Homa, really, until Katrina, and ended up in Ville Platte, and then found this beautiful place. And this is always like, okay, you know, we went back to New Orleans in 2005, and I just like was really like, I want high ground. I want to move. I need to know that I have a safe place to go to. And even though I don't really have that now, I do feel like I know where I want to go when I do have to run. I will be coming here, so I've already like reserved a place down the road. Because I know that the time is coming when we will have to retreat from the coast, and I don't want to leave. You know, I don't want to turn my back on home, but I also recognize that the sustainability, do I want to be surrounded by oil refineries in a decaying landscape that is also surrounded by pipelines that were put in the 1950s and 60s that are not being maintained, that are already popping up? And a friend of mine who plants cypress trees in Carnarvon, which is right behind my family land in St. Bernard, he was like, didn't you know that pipeline popped up of benzene and toluene that just goes across the marsh to, you know, the Pearl River wall? I'm like, no, that wasn't in the news. I don't think they gave us a notice on that. So, you know, I think that, you know, I have this fear that the Gulf has been really warm this summer, and just know what our reality is like. And, you know, now having the state actually say, oh, non-structural adaptation is actually part of the plan now, because we know we're not going to be able to save everything. And so structural means levees, non-structural, which I think is so wrong for community folks. You're like calling somebody's house being bulldozed or you're raising it not a non-structural adaptation. Like it kind of seems like they should have used a better terminology, but I guess that's what the industry uses. But this is happening. You know, we are just north of where the climate refugees are going to be running to. And I think that it's really important for communities that are right here on the edge to be prepared for that. Because as we all saw with 2005, you know, Ville Platte was flooded with people from way down in my part of the South Louisiana Big Toe, you know. So I'm thankful for Arnaville, thankful for this place, because it has been such an inspiration and is a beacon and has taught me so much just individually. And I think that we need more places like this where community can come together and to share so that we can re-envision the Louisiana that we love. Thank you.
I have a question, David. Just real, okay, after.
Me?
After.
Well, yeah.
We can wait till after.
Okay, we're good. I just wanted to perhaps give some support to some things you said about the Grand Bois. The Grand Bois Road is a road that connects Houma to the roads, and I've driven down that road. I won't tell you how fast I've driven down the road, how many times, but I remember one time, before Highway 90 was completed the way it is now, we used to go visit my parents. We used to live here, or already living here, I should say. And I remember one time in the middle of the summer, we went there, windows are up, air conditioning's on, we're driving through the Grand Bois, past that toxic dump site she's talking, and all our eyes started watering inside the car. It's really bad, and I've heard reports, I haven't seen it, but the guys who dumping the stuff out are wearing hazmat suits. The drivers who bring this stuff to dump it, they're dressed like astronauts. And you have barefoot kids 50 yards away. You know, so it's pretty bad. Then also by the coastal erosion, driven down the Randall back in the old Leeville Bridge before they built the highway. I remember driving as a kid one morning, Randall, looking out over the marsh, and you just see marsh, it's beautiful, beautiful green marsh with the wind rippling across the tops of the green grasses, and now it's all water. It's all water. So on a more cheerful note, Big Lily talks about narrative plants.
Hi, so can y'all hear me? Okay, yeah. All right. I'm Lily Voorhees, and I was at.
Speaking to my, please.
Can you hear me better?
Yes.
All right. So I'm Lily Voorhees. I was asked to talk about native plants, and I'm going to sort of veer off from that a little bit. And briefly about me, I'm sort of a generalist. I started school in landscape architecture, and somewhere along the way fell in love with ecology. I've always had this love for biology, and I realized that there was so much that we could do because I was also becoming aware of the issues that we were facing, that climate change. I mean, this was 2005, and so I was learning about the science coming out about climate change and what we face specifically in Louisiana, which was covered very well by all of the speakers that came before me. And also, I'm operating on this presentation under the assumption that we're all in agreement that this is something that we're seeing, you know, in our daily lives. We are at the forefront of climate change as a coastal community. And so a lot of that has shaped the way that I've moved forward into what I'm doing now, which is focusing on agricultural biodiversity and the land knowledge that comes along with that. I went forth from landscape architecture. I read Cradle to Cradle, which Catherine mentioned, and that brought into my mind the concept of design for deconstruction, and that we could use design for good purposes, and that applies not only to the things that we make and we consume, but the way that we exist in landscapes. So that was one point. And then I also took an architecture class where we went to Cheramie and we saw that trash that Catherine was talking about, and I was so broken up about this waste and also the part that we take in it, because a lot of I probably counted 20 chemical buckets that were stamped with varying oil companies, that these were from the rigs offshore, you know. So these were buckets that contained toxic chemicals that had fallen off the rig, been thrown off the rig, whatever. Sorry, y'all. And so where I went next with that was research, what can we do? What can we do about this plastic? And so I started to learn more and more about solutions. And one of those solutions that came forth was the research that's being done in mycology. So there's two well-known mycologists, studying mushrooms, for those of you that may not know, Paul Stamets and Trad Cotter. So they're basically doing research with mushrooms, with fungi. One of those, which is particularly about how to deal with plastic waste and how to deal with toxic waste. So mycology is not really under the realm of plants, but it's sort of under this idea of how we can engage with our natural world to adapt to a changing climate. So I realize I've branched a little bit to try to talk about where I've come along this way, but that led me to spending the next few years researching agrobiodiversity, which is also known as agricultural biodiversity, and the land knowledge that comes along with it. Because to grow things sustainably, to exist in a place sustainably, we have to know exactly where we are in the conditions that that place is. And that's not always going to a university and studying their agricultural programs or their environmental science programs, or although those things are very beneficial, and I'm not dismissing those on any point, but there's knowledge in the minds of our elders who have existed in these locales that is not written down anywhere. At this point, some of it may have been researched, but when I started looking at this information, so years ago I was in a class, we were doing research in Pecan Island, and I realized that there was not very much documented information about Pecan Island. And that was when I got into oral history and documentary collection with folks that were in the place that was disappearing. And that's a knowledge that we can't dismiss, the knowledge of our elders. So that's basically what I'm going to talk about today, and then a little bit about what I'm doing as an individual. And I'm sorry, this isn't lining up very well. Okay, so just some benefits of if we use beneficial plantings for the way that we live, and so think about, there's two different environments that we inhabit. We're inhabiting urban spaces, we'll call Lafayette, New Orleans, those are urban places in the context of Louisiana, for sure. And so those are places where we already exist and where it makes sense to have urban gardens, have urban farms, have backyard farms. This is the way that people existed before we transitioned to what we'll call industrial farming of the day, which relies heavily on petroleum for hot, heavy machinery, petroleum to create fertilizers and chemical pesticides and insecticides, have so many other unintended consequences. So back to what some of the benefits, and we can strengthen our ecosystems. So if we're in the city and we were to replant natives, and not just natives from anywhere, natives from Louisiana, native plants that have Louisiana genetics, and that's important because we have a very specific number of bioregions, and so we might have a species, say, Echinacea purpurea, it's a purple cone flower. We might have this species that also exists in the Midwest where there are prairies, but the genetic variations are different because those two species have existed in two different locales for so long that our plants, our prairie plants, are adapted to the climate specifications that we have. Sometimes we have flooding, sometimes we have mild droughts, sometimes we have pest pressures that aren't existent in those other places. So it's very important when you're talking about natives, where those natives come from and where you source them. And so in that sense, we can strengthen our ecosystems by planting native plants because those are specific to the native pollinators, which you probably have heard a lot about. Save the pollinators, and a lot of that is focused on honeybees or monarchs. That's important, but it's not the only problem. for example, native bumblebees, the research shows that they are our highest crop pollinator. I just said pollinator twice, but they're our highest crop pollinator. And so those bees can only exist if they have the food sources that they need. And our domestic plantings aren't going to give them all of the food sources that they need. So if we plant for them, we can have multiple benefits. We can have plants, for example, prairie plants. Those are going to help stormwater infiltration. They're going to filter pollutants. They're going to help us prevent soil erosion rather than planting lawn. Because if you think about all those medians that we have in Lafayette, and what they could be doing for the ecosystem, for the urban ecosystem that we live in, if they were planted with something that was giving us these multiple benefits and using less energy to maintain. Because the energy that is required to maintain, say, a landscape prairie planting versus a lawn and weeded area, totally different. And I'm not here to present any numbers to you guys. I just have so much that I want to share with y'all that I'm excited about that we're not even going to get into that. But up here I have a technical definition of agrobiodiversity for you to read if you wish. You know, it's not just food products, it's also the crop wild relatives. And that's something that's really important because what I've been talking about briefly is, you know, the locale that we're in, and me specifically, I'm in Lafayette. I'm not originally from there. I'm from New Iberia. I'm from 20 miles from the coastline. So what Monique said about, you know, we need to be aware of this coming future of these places that we've known and we've loved will not exist at some point. You know, we don't know exactly when things will change, but we do know that we are experiencing changing climate, and it's going to be very erratic. So we don't know exactly. I mean, we have the research showing us the worst case scenario, but we don't know exactly what's going to happen. So agricultural biodiversity is a focus on plantings that are more resilient, they're more productive, and they can contribute better nutrition, better productivity, better livelihoods for all of us. And this is from Biodiversity International, which is an international organization that works around the world, and they also work with an organization. They also work with an organization called Global Crop Diversity Trust, which many of you may have heard of the seed bank in Norway. There's a backup seed bank in Norway and Svalbard. And so that is one of the projects that Global Crop Diversity Trust is operating. Another project that they're operating is a Crop Wild Relatives project, where they are partnering with farmers and researchers around the world to collect crop wild relatives. Do you have a question? Sorry.
Crop wild relatives.
Okay, yeah, so I was about to explain that. So crop wild relatives refer to the plant that we've domesticated plants from. So for example, like we have been domesticating plants for 10,000 years. So corn originally was a plant called teosinte, which still exists in our environment, but it's been modified, and I say modified, and I'm not even going to get into GMOs today, but I say modified in the traditional sense of it has been selected by hand, by communities over thousands of years for different purposes, you know, and that's why we see all this diversity, which is having a revival. You'll see purple carrots or yellow carrots or different various colored beets, and these plants have different nutrition yields. They have different conditions that they grow in. There's so much that we can get just from having diversity in not just our environment, but also in the food that we eat. So I wanted to briefly go over what some of the risks are of ignoring biodiversity and like what we have lost. The research shows that we've lost 96% of our food diversity in the last 100 years. And that's sort of terrifying on many levels, because when we lose genetics, we have lost them forever. It took evolution millions of years to produce the plants that we then took thousands of years to domesticate. And there are options. So I'm not going to go into depth about genetically modified organisms or GMOs or genetic engineering, and there are different ways to go about that. You can still do traditional plant breeding with genetic engineering by identifying, hey, this is the marker that we're looking for, and so we're gonna pull this plant and manually breed it, share flower pollen. So that is an example of doing traditional breeding with genetic engineering by using markers. It's not the same as putting in a new genetic trait from another species or anything like that. So, and I'm not going to get into detail about that today. And then, Monique made a great case for why we, Louisiana, are particularly at risk and what we're losing, and I've talked a little bit about that already. But I feel very strongly about not presenting scary information or depressing information without, here are things that we can do. And so there are things that we can do as an individual, there are things that we can push to do in our community, and I like the way that Catherine presented, you can call this organization, as you guys might have noticed, I'm not as familiar presenting in front of groups of people and also sharing this information, so that would have been great for me to have. But in general, we can plan our landscapes more sustainably, and there's many ways to grow sustainably, so I'm not here to say that there's one way that's better than another. We have many mentors in this area who have been doing this work for a long time, and many who I consider who have been great teachers and are out doing this work in the world. Jim Foray, Bill Fontenot, Larry Awe, the organizers of the Acadia Native Plant Project, they have been doing this work for years. And so those are resources that we can tap into. And organizations like Bayou Vermilion District, and things are changing, and the consciousness is changing in our region. So, let's see. I wanted to talk, I'm not sure where I'm on time. Okay. So I want to talk briefly about what I'm doing as an individual, and I also want to clarify the different levels of biodiversity. So for those of you, biodiversity is a short term for biological diversity, and there's different levels of diversity. You have your diversity of ecosystems, which we are highly diverse in South Louisiana because we are a coastal system, because we are a converging system of the Mississippi riparian region, the coastal prairie landscape, and then the different coastlines that we have, the vast difference between the western and the eastern coast of Louisiana, totally different environments and ecosystems. Although we see similar species, they are existing in different ways in those places. So that's sort of our diversity of ecosystems. Diversity of species, the number of species that you might have in an ecosystem or in your garden. And then within that species, there's your diversity of genetics. And so, say you're going to get the most diversity of genetics by growing through seed. And there's a whole nother level. I was talking about native plants. This is also true for fruit plants, but if you just put out seeds of whatever, you might not get exactly what you want because of hybrids versus open pollinated seeds versus there's too much to cover in the short amount of time that we're here. So that's a very basic overview of diversity. And then I apologize for the slide without any pictures, but I wasn't sure how it was going to show up. So one of the things that I'm doing personally, I spent the last few years touring around the United States, studying and training with organizations that do seed work and do oral history documentation work. So I visited Seed Savers Exchange in Iowa and Native Seed Search in Arizona and the Organic Seed Growers Conference in Oregon, and have learned so much about both their practices and ethics that they use, and decided that setting up a small urban garden and greenhouse and promoting growing the way that I felt was sustainable for Louisiana was the way to go. And so currently I am growing Louisiana prairie species that are some for my site, some for donation, some for sale, and those are grown from seed to have the most diverse genetics, and they are sourced from either the UL Ecology Center at Seed or from restoration plantings through Larry Allen or various plantings in Louisiana. And I'm also stewarding 3 varieties that are, I would say, heritage varieties for Louisiana. One of those being the Acadiana Brown Cotton Project that's being set about by Sharon Donnan and Suzanne Bro, who put together the Cotentin documentary on Acadian brown cotton. And I'm not really here to talk about me and my business. It's just like, this is like what I'm doing, and this is what I'm growing, and here's every biodiversity.
Thank you to all our presenters. How about a round of applause for all our presenters here today? That was fantastic. Thank you very much to the government, with individuals, with art, with science, with all we can do to help this problem, because it is here, it is real, and we have to deal with it. So open your eyes, open your ears, and do something about it. Okay? Thank you very much.